Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back to the channel. I want to talk a little bit about today about Omega's new releases as a whole, as part of what we can decipher from them in terms of their marketing strategy, in terms of their marketing placement. But what is more important to me, because I'm an old man in a slightly younger man's body, I want to also think a little bit about how these releases reflect on the brand's identity. Um, I just want to start maybe by addressing the elephant in the room, but I want to just highlight Patricia's message before she shares. I have to say, I saw a video on Watch Advisor where he featured the actual Diver 300, and it was much prettier than the pictures show. That is my expectation as well. I can't wait to see them. I think I will try to drop by before the end of this week to Feldmar Watches and the Omega Boutique in Beverly Center to at least have an idea about when they will be getting these watches into the stores. Um, yeah, anything other than a matte black dial, I think needs to be seen in person. And even as I'm completing that sentence, as a vintage watch head, I'm realizing that there are so many different nuances and different ways of aging and different kinds of patina that goes into watches. Even that you can't count on, right? You have to see that particular model or that particular example in person. You have to be able to handle it before you pass judgment on it. And if you guys watched my video that was dedicated to that particular model, my premise on it was specifically that this was a different watch than what it is already compared to, right? Which is the discontinued Rolex model, LV, the one that we know as the Hulk. It's a ceramic dial. It has a much more muted and deeper green color, and it will look much different in person. Trust me, it won't be the same as a sunburst green on a brass dial. I'm not saying it will be better or worse. It's very subjective. We're talking about aesthetics here. But I would advise anyone and everyone, if you have the slightest interest in the watch, save your judgment until it comes out, until you can handle one. And that video on Watch Advisor is actually very helpful. So if you haven't checked it out yet, I have not. That'll be one of the first things that I will do after this live stream. And I'm hoping this live stream will be a situation where some of you will join me, because I would like to have it as a conversation after I talk it out a little bit on my own. So I said I want to start by maybe addressing something that's way too obvious when we talk about brand identity, and that I will leave it mostly out of my discussion, but I do want to talk about it in brief before I launch on everything else. Listen, we are living in the age of international conglomerates. We're living in the age where a lot of these brands that we are so passionate about are actually owned by these grand luxury houses, right? So it might seem a little bit of a fool's errand to talk about Omega's brand identity, since Omega is no more, right? Since Omega is a brand name under Swatch Group, I know there will be skeptics who say things like that. Of course, the workings of any particular brand within that family of watch brands and within those larger families of luxury brands, such as LVMH, for example, or Richemont, of course, they have their independence. Of course, they are run as separate companies with their own dedicated strategies and with their own goals and aspirations, and thus also with their own brand identities. So if I'm shying away from being as skeptical to say that Omega is no more, by addressing this, I also want to make sure that I'm not as naive to think that what Omega does has nothing to do with the larger corporate overlords, right? Obviously, Omega's brand identity and Omega's marketing strategies are connected to how they are placed in the pecking order that is set by Swatch Group. So I just wanted to make a short note of that. I'm not going to turn the entire video, much less the entire, live stream about this particular question. We might loop back to it when we compare Omega's releases to a certain brand, but I wanted to get that out of the way before we jump onto a wide-ranging discussion. Mr. Stern, welcome, and anyone else who has not yet written but has joined the chat, welcome back to the channel. Gold Green Speedmaster, best Omega I've ever seen, and I'm no Omega fan, still too big to my eyes. Yes, I mean, as a Patek fan, I think a Speedmaster would probably strike you as being a little out of proportion for a chrono, and of course the styling of so-called Holy Trinity chrono is quite different, and I think that can be a good segue for what I'm going to say about Omega. Listen, before quartz crisis hit in the earnest, so in the 1970s, you could certainly say Omega had the wind in its sails, and it was in fact stepping in a way stepping away from Rolex, right? It was one step ahead of Rolex in many ways. I'm sure some of you are familiar with the story of how Omega's Speedmaster became the moon watch, and how, in fact, there was an entire space race going on between watch brands, and specifically between Omega and Rolex. And I would love to make an entire video for that. So if you would like that, please feel free to express your opinion in the chat. I do want to have a dedicated video where I talk about the relationship between watches and space, about the moon watch, and what other watches other than the Omega Speedmaster have gone to the moon, and how before all that was the competition between Daytona and the Speedmaster. Daytona, which was not named Daytona in the beginning, even when it was branded as a separate line within Rolex's chronographs, it was named Le Mans, right, by another race, basically by another 24-hour race, coincidentally. To this day, you will realize that it is named as Cosmograph, and the reasons are obviously because it was designed for that purpose, because it was, at least Rolex aspired to be the moon watch and to supply to NASA, to go to space, but they lost out that race. So Omega had everything going for it, as a Swiss automatic watch of a certain provenance, of this, having won the space race over Rolex. They were the tool watch, the sports watch to have, going into the 70s before the quartz crisis hit. So we're talking about a brand, that might seem in today's market as being secondary to Rolex. But when you look into the historical arc, of how the two brands developed, it was in fact as respectable, if not more respectable, than Rolex half a century ago, right? And the reasons for that were many. Again, having won the space race was an important reason. The other part of it was kind of a snobbery, and it might strike you as paradoxical at this point in time to talk about Omega as the watch of the snobs, of the watch snobs. But this was exactly the case. You might want to call it reverse snobbery if you really want to stick by the primary dictionary definition, which is much more of a classist distinction. But snobbery is also about feeling better about yourself, thinking better of yourself as opposed to another person, because you have better taste, because you think you are smarter, because you are making, or because you think you're making better choices than that person. And Omega was precisely that in the 70s, right? Here I have a Swiss watch, an automatic watch, a sports watch, and it is just as good, if not better, than this gaudy Rolex that the next guy bought, and I've got it even for less, right? On that note, what am I wearing? I'm wearing 16710 Coke GMT Master 2, which I think is just perfection. Speaking of gaudy Rolexes, I'm representing the home team. Nevertheless, I'm a huge fan of Omega. And if certain things went in another trajectory in my life, in an alternative universe, I can see myself having a collection entirely made up of Omegas and that one JLC Reverso that I have. Getting back on track, right? Omega was the watch of the snob, or you can say of the reverse snob, who could say, I have something just as good, if not better, and I have in fact paid even less for it because I know better. It is the watch of the snob. It is the watch of the cognoscenti. It's the watch of those in the know. So I want you to keep that in mind. And even as we are now in the 21st century and almost half a century away from that moment in horological history that I'm talking about, that relates especially to Swiss automatic watches and particularly to sports watches, right before the quartz crisis hit the industry. It's still the case when it comes to people who are committed enthusiasts for the brand. When you come across hobbyists who have collections exclusively of Omegas or exclusively of Speedmasters, you have this sense of a very heightened sense of superiority that they have over and against most of the rest of the watch community, and especially against those who own Rolex, right? They know better. They have not bought into the hype. They have gone for the real thing, right? The watch that went to space. They have stuck to their guns. They have gone with the brand that had itself placed right there in the market where you could, in fact, afford one. That anyone who, most anyone who put it into their mind that they have to get that one luxury sports watch could actually set aside money and make sure that they get their Speedmaster, get their Moonwatch one day. And that's been bolstered, of course. That's been bolstered, of course, with the advent of social media. Right? There are two things that have somehow solidified or perhaps simply reinforced the Omega Speedmaster as the sports watch of every man. One is the more popular one, perhaps, that we can also observe beyond the bounds of Archieverse, which I feel is a heretical thing to say, but nevertheless, you're all, of course, familiar with the hashtag Speedy Tuesday, right? The social media is littered with people pushing wrist shots of their Omega Speedmasters and publicizing it, on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube Shorts now, on TikTok, everywhere. And also, of course, Archie almost always had a Speedmaster in his collection, and perhaps along with the Polar Explorer, that was the watch that he always got most enthusiastic about. And yeah, maybe it just doesn't fit with the image of the other watches, other models, and other brands he owns. But you never heard Archie screaming about Patek or about the JLC or Reverso in the same way, right? He has a lot of love, a lot of passion, a lot of really unbridled enthusiasm for those watches as well. But it is the Moonwatch that got its own jingle, so to speak, that has its own trademarked signature phrase, "Man on the fucking moon." So that's the tagline that has been adopted. I've heard other people say it in the same way in their own otherwise earnest and very grave presentations. So I remember Oshin had it in one of his videos, and it kind of caught me off guard. I know he knows who Archie is, and I know he has already appeared in the live stream some time ago. But anyway, it just surprised me. But it is a social media phenomenon as well, Speedmaster, right? And people who like their Omegas, who like their Speedies, who love their Speedies, really do love them. They're waiting for that particular day in the week where they can flash it worldwide, even though it is supposed to be, again, the everyman's sports watch, much more accessible, much more available, and much more aligned with the values we cherish as the average enthusiast. And it just checks a lot of great boxes, right? The Moonwatch. It has this simple and beautiful all black aesthetic. It is a chronograph, so it has that sporting heritage. It is the Moonwatch. How much better can it get, right? It has a provenance that connects it to one of the most significant and positively significant events in the 20th century. And it's accessible, it's available, which brings me to the last point in this presentation. What is going on with Omega, right? We now have these novelties that were just released, and let me pull up that picture, because I'm sure most of you are by now bored of my face. Though I do look quite good today. I was admiring myself in the mirror a little bit. I have a pretty face. But yes, when these came out, it was really controversial, right? And it's more controversial now because we don't know if they will be available, when they're actually arriving in the boutiques and authorized dealers, and whether they will be in any way limited or whether they will be accessible to the average person, to the average Omega customer. And I already see a lot of skepticism in the chat that these models are not actually addressed. They are not marketed towards the average Omega customer, towards people, hobbyists and enthusiasts who are committed to the brand already. And I partly agree. But those people who have been committed to the brand already felt, in a way, betrayed by Omega once, right? And I'm talking about what happened 3 years ago, 2019, which was, of course, the 50th anniversary of the moon landing. And a lot of the Omega nerds were expecting the original column wheel chronograph movement to make a comeback in the Moonwatch, right? The 3-2-1 movement. And that didn't happen. That year they got instead a white gold watch at, I think it was 60K. And it simply didn't scratch that itch that the average Omega enthusiast had. And I know that now you can get a stainless steel Speedmaster with the 3-2-1 movement, but it comes at a huge markup. So you see now a trend in Omega that certainly tries to play around with its marketing placement, right? Basically make the point with their pricing, oh, we are just as good as Rolex, so why shouldn't we price our products at the same tag price as Rolex? Why shouldn't we release the kind of watches that appeal to the average Rolex customer? So in many ways, I don't really see why these releases outraged a lot of the people in the watch community, in the Archiverse, so much, because in many ways they're simply another symptom, simply another manifestation of the kind of marketing strategies that Omega has been pursuing now for a few years. Paul says, how can Rolex be considered high luxury when there are unemployed people that have them? It's no more luxurious than a Toyota or Honda. Paul, I mean, I can agree with you on some level, but I think, when people call Rolex a luxury watch or a high luxury sports watch, um, I don't even think they're necessarily expressing a personal opinion. It is really about their placement in the market. I mean, there are a lot of people who can lease, at least for a very limited period of time, very, very luxurious sports cars. Um, does that take away from the branding of those particular sports cars? I don't think so. Maybe at that moment where you see, uh, where you see one on the street, and you have a clear sense that this is not, this car doesn't necessarily belong to that person. It just doesn't go together. I usually refrain from making those kinds of judgments, but you always hear the stories of someone, getting their card declined, in the grocery store, in the restaurant, even as they're wearing a two-tone Rolex watch. We have all heard them. We may have some of us may have already experienced them. I'm not sure if that kind of anecdote defines an entire brand, but I do, um, on the level of personal opinion, you're completely entitled to it, of course. If that's not a high luxury watch or a high luxury item for you, that is it. That's your opinion, and I have all the respect for it. Patricia says, does seem a bit of a presumptive stab at Rolex rather than catering to those that love their brand. Interesting that they come out so early with the new models. Is that normal? Um, I'm not sure if it happens every year, but of course they're trying to take the wind. I used this analogy already, but I will use it again. Take the wind of the sails of some other brands who will have later releases. So they now own the conversation, positive or negative, right? It's one of the cliches by now. It's a truism. There's no such thing as bad advertising. So we're talking about it. They are right now winning that game. Um, Pardon me. Night Wrist Watchman says all sports models are merging into one. Um, yes, it's like, if you spent any significant amount of time in the European Union, especially, you'll see that most cars look like it. Look like one car. They may be branded otherwise, but they're owned by the same giant corporation, and they all look more or less the same, because they have to be conforming to a certain Europe-wide standard, and ultimately, visually too, they start merging into that single image. And maybe that's the future in sports watches as well. I hope not. It seems very dystopian to me. Hopefully, we won't see that. Rolex is an aspirational brand. There's an idea. That's actually great. Um, think of it like this: when it comes to the kinds of brands you will see in any high rolling street, in a modern metropolis, Rolex is more like Ralph Lauren than Hermes. Rolex is more like Ralph Lauren than Saint Laurent, Yves Saint Laurent, right? Um, so I think that's a very good way to put it, right? And also, of course, Ralph Lauren is not really one brand either, right? So Rolex is more like, perhaps, um, more like Polo than their purple label line, or the collection line with the purple label that they have for women, then um, yeah, then the purple label, more like a polo than a purple label. But again, it's still an item that most people aspire to, and most people cannot really own. Um, yeah, it's funny, Night Risk Watchman, because right when I started stuttering, I'm now reading your very generous message. You articulate these points so well. I was just stuttering my way around them, but I appreciate all the kind words. Um, so I'm gonna post the link now, and maybe if any one of you is interested in going through some of these models with me, um, I would really love to do that, because I am already getting a little tired of hearing my own voice. So it would it would be much more pleasant if I could have an interlocutor right around this time. I specifically tried to do it a little earlier in the day today. One, of course, not to clash with any of my friends in the Archiverse, but also to be able to attract some of the viewers in the UK, because I know I want to stay engaged uh, with the Brits here. I want to also um, have their inputs, have their interventions, have them as part of the conversation in this channel. That Watch Boy, welcome back to the channel. It's so nice to see you. I hope you caught some part of my earlier rants. Um, but yeah, to just wrap up that point, I think this particular strategy, where you have a lot of resemblance, I'm not gonna overstep and say that this watch looks exactly like this watch and it's really like an homage and it's really like a copy. I don't really believe in that in the world of watches. Yes, green is Rolex's proprietary color, um, but they don't own it. You know, it's not even like Tiffany blue, where they tried to trademark a particular tint. Uh, Omega has the liberty to use any which color they want in their watches, in their product lines, but they will also have to live with the consequences, right? So now that we have this social media outrage, now that we have this conversation and this exchange on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, where people put these watches side by side, Aqua Terra with the Oyster Perpetual, the John Mayer Daytona with the green and gold Moonshine Moonwatch, um, Oysterflex, Paul Newman with the gold Daytona on the rubber strap, the Hulk with the Riddler, as I called it. Um, I feel like it might alienate some of the core fans of the brand, some of the committed enthusiasts of Omega, who have felt better about themselves and about their choices by being so different from Rolex. Now you have these Aquaterras who have the same movement as the same Seamaster, right? Caliber 8800, but that are somehow priced uh, higher than the Seamaster, which in a way seems like the more complicated watch. So you see really that there is a very conscious marketing placement strategy that has gone into this, and I hope it helps them sell more watches. I hope it helps them move more units. I hope that all, if not all, most of these models will be available to the customer without inexcusable, inexplicable year-long wait lists. But I'm also afraid, as an Omega fan from a distance, um, as someone who is enthusiastic about the history of the brand, I am somewhat afraid that they're moving away from the core identity of the brand, which was about snobbery and reverse snobbery, perhaps is the better term, about certain kinds of sports watches. Groundhog Day says, I think the Aqua Terras are interesting because they're priced so closely to the Oyster Perpetuals, ignoring availability. Voila. This is exactly what I wanted to say, right? So you can see how that is a conscious strategy. And they are interesting. I think they're beautiful watches. I mean, look at these. Like, you want, honestly, if I didn't have my Datejust, right, my 5-digit Datejust, and if I wanted to buy a watch today that straddles that territory between a dress watch and a sports watch, and that has some sort of visual interest, I would certainly look into these. The gray one, it's so simple and beautiful. The slate blue, perhaps you can call it, it's fantastic. You know, the copper one, I know in the chat I saw someone, and I think it was Groundhog Day again, saying that it was a future classic. I agree. The pink one, the candy apple one, beautiful watch. Tim Wright, my friend.
Hey, Lord, how's it going, man? Can you hear
Good.
me?
So nice to see you.
Thank you. Thank
Are
you.
you ever gonna change out of that Russian tuxedo, or is it just part of the uniform now?
Hey, it's I don't even know why I'm wearing it. Oh, yeah, yeah. I was gonna film a video,
Yeah.
but you know how it is. Procrastination.
Oh
You
man,
know, I
the
just
mother of all evils. Mother
yeah,
of all.
I was just making a mock-up, as you can see,
Mm.
for the thumbnail of all the. Actually, I'm gonna change one of these Daytonas for the PRX, because not only is Omega ripping off Paddock, but they're also doing it to Tudor. It looks like the brand has completely
Tissot, you mean?
ruined the towel.
Because you
Huh?
mentioned PRX, you mean Tissot, not
Oh, yeah, no, no,
Tissot.
sorry, sorry. FXD,
FXD.
fixed, with the
Right.
fixed lugs. I think, listen, they know their brand too well. Omega is the last letter in the alphabet, in the Greek alphabet. So I think, and Rolex is a crown. I figured, you know what? They decided to take their brand name to heart and just be the last. Just be the last. Why innovate? Why be the first? Why be the kings of the industry if they could be the followers, scooping up all the leftovers? And
Uh,
that's a fanboy, an Omega fanboy says that. You know?
well,
Lord.
I respect your point. I knew that you would be presenting this case, so
Yeah.
I'm actually very happy to welcome you. Um, Again, as I said, it's there. It is the elephant in the room, uh, and that's why I wanted to talk with you about it, because look, uh, you like Omega and you're more committed to it than I
You
am.
know,
So
I was gonna show you. what it was like. Okay, I have a presentation here, a show and tell, as we say, right?
Wait, but I want us to talk about something before we launch on that. Is that okay?
Oh, sure, 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 sure.
Because we have been, of course, as part of our plotting behind the scenes, we have been also talking about this very interesting point.
Yes.
Because we share a common passion in wristwatches and in Rolex.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes we make fun of Rolex, saying like, oh, they're a charitable foundation. How nice
Yeah.
and kind of them. But the funny thing about that, when you focus on it from a business perspective,
Mm-hmm.
right, it means that they don't have to account themselves to all these investors. They don't have to be slaves to the whims of the market on any
Yes.
given quarter,
Yes.
and they're not being dictated by this random CEO who comes from out of the left field and wants to
Yes.
leave his own mark on the company and on the brand and starts doing all these crazy things. They have a
Correct.
very conscious strategy that they don't shift around too much, that they don't change too much, and that they shape with minor modifications as if they have a kind of artistic license of a sculptor who toils away at the marble to extract the exact shape they
Correct.
want.
That's why you don't know
It's the
who the
time they
CEOs of Rolex are. You don't know who designers are. You don't know whether Gerald Genta had any input in certain designs. It's the brand first. It's everything. Their number one mission is to preserve the brand name, and it
Yes.
just so happens that in this capitalist environment, it leads to these outcomes. If things were different, maybe they wouldn't be as successful. However, they wouldn't be as successful as a business, because there's so many egos. Every time a new CEO is elected into these brands, they want to, like you said, they want to bring in their own mark. It says, oh, this is my style, and they completely redesigned brand. You look at what's happening to Breitling. They were horrible, because that was the vision of that CEO, and now they're doing like vintagey stuff because that's what the current CEO likes. It's just like it's completely random. They don't care about the brand. They just care about like themselves and what
Right.
they think, what they
They
envision.
became again, for example, for now, some of us may be happy, and
Hmm.
I'm happy from an aesthetic standpoint, right? I don't own chronographs. I don't really
Yes.
see myself owning any chronographs.
Hmm.
But again, in an alternative universe, I can see myself saying, if I were to get one of those Breitling chronos on a discount,
Yes.
they look fantastic, right?
They're
They
pretty
look
good
like
watches. Yeah.
Patek on a budget. Why not,
Yes.
right? You
Yes.
might think that, but like you said, who knows when this CEO moves on to some other company and someone else comes in, what will Breitling be? We don't know what Breitling is. We know we might not like it, but we always know what Rolex is.
Freaking changes identity every 10 years.
I put my 4-digit sub next to Sea Dweller 43. I see the family resemblance. I may not like the change,
Hmm.
but I know that these watches belong to the same brand.
You can see
And
DNA.
yeah, can you see that? Say that about the Seamaster from the 60s and the Seamaster 300M now?
No.
Some of the Seamasters are not even sports watches.
Some of the stuff doesn't even make any sense. It's like it's almost like they have three different brands in one. They're just like, and there's so many things, man. There's so many Breitlings, and they're all so different from each other. They have the quartz ones, they have the heritage, they have the new stuff. I mean, man, the whole heritage could be a completely different brand. No, there's a reason why Rolex has Tudor, because this is where they do like their heritage stuff, experimenting. But man, these guys just lost. They're just all over the place.
I mean, all Rolex does as part of its own product line
Hmm.
with their heritage is just like a slight nod of the hat, right?
Okay.
They will bring that pointy GMT hand into the Explorer 2 line just to
Yeah,
say
yeah.
we know.
We fucked up when they, because what happens if you look at the Explorer 2, it was the old one, right? It was very different. It was like a, it was almost like a like a different brand watch with that orange hand. And what they tried to do is they tried initially to bring it closer in line with the other GMT Master 2, right? That's why they changed the hand to the triangle one,
Yeah,
which is what GMT Master 2 has. And then when they did it, they were like, "Ooh, now they look way too similar," right? And then they pulled it back. But it's just a hand. The other brands, they bring in a whole new design of a watch. Like, what is this? This has nothing to do with the with this brand. So it's like,
it's just yeah, it's just the GMT hand or just like a single line of red writing.
yeah.
We
Oh,
know
the
we
red
know
again.
our heritage exists. We know
Yeah,
where we are in this world, but we are not just going to respond to whatever is the latest trend in the market because we know those things change next year or 2 years from
exactly. They're not chasing the market trend now. They're, in fact, they're going out of their way not to do it. Like, you look at the Explorer 2s, what was the trend? The ceramic bezels. Everyone wanted the ceramic bezel. They said, "We're not doing a ceramic bezel on the Explorer 2. We know you guys don't like it. You can go fuck yourself. We don't care. We don't care what you guys want, because are just you guys are just going through every day through all these emotions, through all, yeah, like I might like pink shorts today and then tomorrow I might like the green ones. They have a strategy that's fucking 10, 50 years from now. And they know, and they're making stuff that's timeless and that will always be good. Not just today, not just in 2021 when it's the green hype. And a lot of people, they don't understand that. They think, oh, I want them to make a Submariner in some red color because it's the Chinese New Year. Fuck you, what, a Submariner in red because it's Chinese New Year? Get the fuck out of here. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
the one Chinese viewer that I might have. I'm a full supporter of one China
Hey,
policy. I don't
hey,
know. I don't know.
hey, there's nothing against the
I don't know
Chinese
what this
people
guy is
or the
talking about.
Chinese New Year.
The
But
Chinese New
but
Year is
that's what
a while
IWC
ago.
did. But that's what IWC did, Lord. They released a Portugueser in red just because it was Chinese New Year. I mean, dude,
But you need
can
someone. You need someone to port
dude,
these users somewhere. So it's that's good.
dude, that is so dumb. And Hublot is even worse. They released like a watch to celebrate some high school for rich kids. Like, fuck me dead, man.
Diego
What a
is a good point
joke.
too. Tim, thoughts on people clamoring for a 4142 Daytona FM2?
Yeah, it's true. Daytona, Rolex is not gonna make a Daytona bigger, and I thought about it. I thought maybe they could, but because it's a chronograph and because of the position of the chronograph eyes, if they were to make like the dial bigger, everything would look disproportionate. There's a reason why Daytona is this size, and it's because that's the size of the movement. So
That's
they
right.
might the only way they'll make a Daytona 41 or 42 is if they release Daytona 2 that has a bigger movement, and maybe it's a tenth of a second, maybe it's a flyback, maybe it has some type of other chronograph option. I mean, you would have to really think about, like, what kind of chronographs do people really need? And because you look at the Sky Dweller, and Rolex really sat down. They asked themselves, well, what kind of annual calendar do people need? What do people really need? And they came up with this with that, and you really see it because like they said to themselves, listen, people don't really need to know what month it is. Okay, they just need to know that the date that's displayed is always correct. Okay, and if they need to know the month, there should be a way to figure out. But it doesn't have to be like in your face. And that's why they have, they just have like a calculator on the inside with that tiny little red dot. So it's just really, it's designed for function first. And like, so like if they're gonna make a chronograph, a second Daytona, I don't know what it's gonna be, but
And
it's gonna
again,
be
I
genius.
completely agree with that because I know Rolex is not the kind of brand again that does exhibition casebacks just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
But uh, one of my pet peeves in watches is
Mhm.
when brands have exhibition casebacks. Forget about the decoration on the movement.
Yeah.
Exhibition caseback for a movement that doesn't actually belong to that watch, right? Where you
Ooh.
have a three-hander movement that you have all across the board,
Yeah.
to hell with 38 to 42, always the same size, and somehow they're trying to sell to the customer a movement that is too small for the case of that watch.
Yeah.
That drives me insane, especially when it comes on an exhibition case back. I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? I know most people don't care, but why do you think exhibition case back is for? It's for people who care. So don't disrespect their intelligence by slotting that movement into a watch that it doesn't belong. So you're absolutely right. It needs to be, if it's going to be bigger, it's not just going to be bloated. It has to be a new design,
Yeah.
not something from scratch, but it needs to be something proportional.
Yes. Yes. And exactly. And that's why I'm almost 100% sure, like 99.9% sure, that the case, they might play with the symmetry. You know how the gold ones already are a little bit more symmetrical, like the steel Daytonas. The lug on the right side is thinner than on the left. I think they might bring that. They might bring back the steel bezel because they already did that once. So I'm thinking, okay, they'll bring the case back. Maybe they could make the lugs a little bit wider and put in a thicker bracelet, and it will make the whole package kind of feel thicker. But as it comes to the the size of like the case, it I don't think so. And because of the movement, in here is purposely tiny. It's like it's an engineering marvel. I mean, it probably was so freaking difficult for them to design this movement to be that small. I mean, competition is still there's still no competition for this movement to this day. El Primero is the only other movement that's this small and that's
Yeah.
this proportional. Omega
And
doesn't have anything like this until, and think of it this way: the only movement that I think that can kind of compete with this is would be the what's it called? The new 57, the Heritage, right? It's got the date and it's got the
two,
chronograph, two register chronograph, but it's manual wind. If they already did that in automatic, and it was a hockey puck. It was thick. The racing is, the Omega racing watches. They're unwearable, unfortunately. Too
and
thick.
again, El Primero is not just some random movement, right? Zenith was one of the first to design an automatic chronograph movement, and they supplied the automatic movement to Rolex from 1988 to 2000, if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
the
yeah, something like that, something like that.
it's
And I think they learned a lot from the Zenith movement. I think Rolex movement probably has a lot to do with the Zenith because of all the
and it was,
research and development.
for the longest time. Of course, this was a time before Yachtmaster 2, Sky Dweller, etc. That
Yeah,
automatic chronograph movement was the first original Rolex movement after so many decades. So it's
correct.
that it is a marvel is because, again, charitable foundation. They had the time to take their time to design something that actually fit their vision. And
Right.
if that took an entire 12 years where they had to trust that movement to zenith,
Yeah.
that was fine. They
Yeah.
could do that because they didn't have to respond to the whims of investors or narcissistic CEO who is a delusional
Yeah.
fantasy.
The delusional fantasist, man. You know, let me tell you about what Omega was always like, right? Omega used to be a great alternative, right, to a Rolex. Let's say you wanted a Daytona, right? And but you couldn't get a Daytona. A Speedmaster is a great alternative to a Daytona. But they're also two totally different watches. Okay? They're not designed to replace each other. They're completely different. It's a manual wind, a completely different look. It's like, hey, I want the Daytona, but even when let's say you get the Speedy, you can later get the Daytona, and you can keep both of them because they're both different watches, right? So a year ago, I could say, hey, you can't get the Rolex you want. Why not just get an Omega, because they have a lot of watches that are very they're not like, they don't even look anything like them, but quality wise, they're 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 good, and they could be like a great little substitute. They of course they will never fulfill the desire for the one you want, but they're great alternative. But now, after this release, dude, these watches are designed to look exactly like the watch you want. So it's no longer like these watches, they're no longer an alternative to a Rolex. They're
To
like a
me,
replacement.
that's
And it's the worst thing to do to someone.
again, I'm not sure if I agree with everything, every aspect of the larger argument you are presenting, but now you put things, I think, very beautifully and concisely. Because to me, too, when I use the word alternative, I mean to say exactly what you just said. It needs to be something in the same larger category, but not the same, because it will never, if you really want a Daytona
Yeah.
as your chronograph, nothing else is going to scratch that itch. And it's especially not going to be the case if you get a watch that's much cheaper but looks the same,
Right.
right? And much more of it. It's not going to be. But when you tell people, okay, you wanted the chronograph and you maybe Daytona caught your eye because it is the watch that everyone wants. Have you considered, the Speedmaster? Speedmaster has its own character. It has its own history. It has its own sporting aspect. It checks all sorts of boxes. So take a look at this. It's a different watch. It's a different feel on the wrist. It's a
Some
different feel emotionally. So that's
some
a
would say
legitimate
it's
alternative.
better. Some would
It's
even say it's
of
better.
course.
Yeah.
I mean, I would, with all due respect, again, I would say I'm not a chronograph guy, but if
Hey.
I were to get
Yeah.
a chronograph today, going out of the
Yeah.
door, I would
Yeah.
go for Speedmaster, the Moon watch.
Yeah. But
That's what it is.
but that's when you talk about it as a watch. When you take it one step further, when someone doesn't want just the Daytona, when they want the John Mayer Daytona, a full yellow gold with green dial Daytona, and someone says, "Oh, you want John Mayer? Why don't you get the Speedmaster that was colored the same way to look like John Mayer Daytona?" Then it becomes like, fuck, what is these guys doing? They're just making an imitation. Because if someone were to say, because if the yellow gold green dial Speedmaster didn't exist, and someone said, I want John Mayer, I would tell them, well, look, let's say you don't have that money, but you want something that a full gold chronograph why not consider Zenith El Primero? Zenith El Primero, they have a beautiful full rose gold. It's on a leather strap with like a black ceramic dial. That it's a full gold chronograph, right? It's not the same colors, but it's its own unique thing, right? It's a unique watch. Or why not a moonshine? You know, the Speedmaster, full yellow gold with red bezel, right? Those are alternatives. They're not fucking homages to a fucking John Mayer Daytona. That is, dude. I mean, taking it to this step, it kind of it made me so disappointed once I started realizing, man, these guys is just, instead of creating watches that could compete, because the moonshine, full yellow gold moonshine with the red bezel, could compete against the full yellow gold Daytona. They're competitors, right? But when you create a competitor in that really specific, unique color combination, man, you're just fucked, man. Then you're just copying. You're just and
that's why
doing
I
it.
like the conversation, because again, you're clearly more invested in Omega than I am. I'm trying to consider things from a certain distance,
Mm,
and I have good things to say about it. I have bad things, but you have
man,
a lot of raw emotion.
man, it's been boiling in me. I spent the whole day thinking about this. How they just literally fucked everyone. Like Omega. I mean, because like it takes time to try and understand, like, why, what is this, what are they trying to do. And with Omega being the last letter in the alphabet, man, this is just what they're doing is such loser mentality. As someone who has an Omega, who just bought one, it
You
honestly
feel
it makes
betrayed.
me
You
it
feel
makes me a bit
betrayed.
sick. I feel a bit sick and disappointed
You feel
by what
betrayed.
Omega did here.
You feel
I want
betrayed by Omega.
I feel betrayed. Yeah, I want to write a letter to the CEO, telling him, like, what the fuck are
Make
you
sure
doing?
make sure it's in
Yeah,
Archie's handwriting in red
yeah.
letter.
Well, I have burgundy. I have burgundy ink. I have burgundy ink. I'm gonna write a letter saying, like, what, like, why copy? Why not make alternatives? You have a great watch. Okay, why not come up with your own unique color combinations that can stand on its own? They don't have to be. Why you don't have to use Rolex as a crutch? Because what it is, they're using all those combinations as a crutch to help them sell their watches. It's just such a loser mentality.
So would you say this is almost as bad as the Pepsi Super Bowl commercial when they tried to appropriate Pepsi is okay as their brand motto? Is this just as bad?
Dude, I think it's way worse. It's way worse. Because, I mean, like, just Amiga it was such a great brand. It was such a great brand, man. They
think
have so much to offer to the world, and here
I
they are.
still is. I mean, my refuge from all this is that they're presented as novelties 2022. So maybe they will be genuinely limited releases, at least for a limited time, and they will move on to something else. Whether this sticks or not, I hope it makes business sense to them because they're a business. But I hope it doesn't come to define the brand from now on. Um,
Tim, they're luring out all the first and second time watch buys. Omega doesn't want or need to take any risks. It's not. It's like this is a scandal, I think, just like their courts. They bet on the courts before, okay? They bet on the loser before. Remember, in like during the quartz crisis, they went on full on quartz. They made all the quartz shitters. They were just like they switched their brand from from making automatic watches to completely full on quartz, and they almost went bankrupt. This is the same thing. This is like them just bending to the whims of the people.
Mm.
And you know what the people are? People are fucking morons. And that's the problem. They think this is a short term thinking that will basically they lost they lost so much respect to me. Again, this is probably the only respectable watch in their catalog. The Because it's not trying to be anything that it's not. But everything else, man, I'm just makes me sick. Makes me sick.
Is it the only respectable watch in Tim Wright's collection? I'm just kidding. I'm just joining the trolls who keep saying that
Yeah.
bought that watch because you wanted to have something that showed your true colors as an enthusiast. I think for someone like you who devotes so much time to this in the last year, that's the last thing I would question. Honestly, you are very committed to the hobby, and you're trying to put your heart and all your resources into it, and I commend you for that, Tim. Thank you.
Thank you, Lord. Yeah, I've been working hard and just talking to a lot. I spoke to so many people over the past few years, and a lot of them really, really love watches. They love Omega as a brand, and a lot of them, I think, this is what I'm saying. This is not a popular opinion. This is something uh like people who bought three, four, five Omegas. They don't want to hear this. They're gonna call me the hater. The hater that they'll say Omega's trying their best, but man,
Mm.
they'll say, "Oh, you're just saying this because you're a Rolex fanboy and stuff like this." But
I
man,
think
it
I like
pains me.
this. Beyond the bet you guys have,
Mm,
I like the fact that this new Omega releases put Tim Wright channel against showcase watches like in a new light and at another level now. The competition is real now. There's a real argument, a real bone to pick. It's not
yeah,
just about the
yeah.
frequency anymore. There is there's an argument. There's a debate to be had.
I have one Amiga. He has one Rolex, and we're in a head to head battle. And I want what's best for both brands. And I mean, let's say if Rolex was making mistakes, and and it's really interesting, right? Because I do remember. I remember the year before release, and I remember last year Rolex release, and I can't wait for this year's Rolex release because it's gonna be so boring. Because it's gonna be so boring. They're gonna release nothing. Maybe they'll redo Air King, or maybe they'll redo Milgauss or something. Maybe they won't do anything just to fuck with people. Just because we didn't feel like making anything. And they're obviously gonna do something, but it's gonna be like, here's the thing. Let me put it this way. Sometimes what these brands do and what people interpret when people see all these colorful new Omegas, they think like that Omega is doing a lot, like they're innovating and stuff like that, right? They think, oh, this is so exciting. There's so much stuff coming out, but it's just like eating fast food. Okay, it's just like eating McDonald's. What Omega is doing right now is they're fucking feeding you McDonald's fried chicken and candy. Okay, they're shoving that down your throat. Okay, what
McDonald's
do
is not really known for their fried chicken, but I get
yeah,
your.
yeah. What Rolex does is they feed you vegetables and tofu, stuff you don't want. You're like, "Mm, I'm not really excited about
Are
this,
they?
right?
It's more
I'll
like
eat it.
a Michelin restaurant where maybe they will bring you like three pieces of something, but even
Yeah,
that is not guaranteed.
yeah. It's not
Blindfold,
guaranteed. Yeah,
blindfold and surrender. They might
yeah.
give you something to eat, probably not.
Probably not. And you don't know what it is. You're like, like you're gonna eat it. It's not gonna give you the boner. Okay, it's not gonna. But it's it's like it's good for you. It's very healthy. 6 months later, you will feel good. Okay, with this omega release, you're gonna get that sugar high in first, and you're gonna fucking crash. You're gonna crash. Okay, that's all. That's
Yeah,
that's what I feel like it's gonna be,
the,
because
the
that's what
Skittles,
happened to Brightly.
the Skittles Aquaterras are a good example of that. I think, according to your analogy, that
Mm,
it's a sugar rush that might not pay off later down the road. Um,
yeah.
yeah, again, I like a lot of models. I always hated, and I still hate the Oyster Perpetuals. They don't mean anything to me.
Hmm.
Uh, I kind of like these new Aquaterras. I like their colors a little better. Guilty as charged, but certainly, as part of the larger vision of the brand, and as part of the brand, as someone who cares about the brand identity,
Mm.
I hope this is just a blip in Omega's history, and they will issue a course correction not much later, if not next year.
Well, well, if Omega fanboys don't stand up and say, "Hey, we don't want you just to be a fucking cheap imitation, cheap homage to Rolex," then they won't. If Omega fanboys eat it up, just get fat, then it's not gonna be good news.
Mr.
Brent.
Stone,
Mhm.
adopt it, please. Brands need icons, complications, movements, and model history refined like a 911. None of this in that new range.
Boom. Exactly. 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 I understand if they did something unique, because they obviously can. If they can make those colors, they obviously look. People wanted the purple. Where is purple fucking color? You know, I think if they released the Seamaster in purple, that would have been much better than doing it in green, because purple is new. Purple is something that's unique. It's taking risk. It's pushing forward. Green, it's something Paddock and Rolex have been doing for years without actually a lot of success. Rolex has been making those green Hulks for many years, and they were dogs. They were dogs. The Kermits were selling at 25% discount, and Omega didn't make a green Seamaster until they saw there was money in it, and it's
I
just
think they had a model in the 90s with a green bezel. Not a polished green, but like a muted
Mhm.
green bezel. I can probably pull it up.
Mm.
But no, I get your point. Um, I'm still not a fan of the Hulk as a watch. I love the new Seamaster, that I came
Yeah,
to call the Riddler. I love it. I think visually it's really pleasing to me. I want to see it in person,
yeah,
but I feel like it's going to be hyped up. So for someone like me who takes too much time to make a decision for
yeah.
contemporary watches, I'd probably never get it. But yeah, I mean the Hulk, it was easy to get at some point,
Dog.
and
It
then it
was dog.
started picking up. Even the Kermit and its new version, I just don't find these watches all that attractive.
I could have had the Hulk. I could have had the Hulk. When I went to, I don't know if you know the story of my first purchase,
No,
but
please share as much as you want to share.
when I went to buy my first Rolex, I went to get a Daytona. I went to get this watch because I opened up the website and they
Mm.
had the video where it's like when it's like revealed like, boom. And I was like, damn. So it was like if you go on the Rolex website, they had it like that. You open up the website and this watch was like flying in like that and goes boom. And I went, damn, that's a cool fucking watch. So I was like, holy shit. I better go get this one. But before opening up the Rolex website ever for the first time, I did some research on Submariners, like a Submariner, and Archie. I was watching few Archie videos, and I remember watching a video comparing, because I had a tutor, and I watched sorry, I had the Tag Heuer, and it broke down, and while it was getting a service, I was like, man, I have to get out of this Tag Heuer dog shit and get something better. And I started watching all these different videos what to get. And Archie was saying like, oh, the only watch that you should that's worth buying at retail new was a Rolex. Okay, and I was like, oh, Rolex, let me go check this out. And so uh, uh, I watched a YouTube video on the Submariner. I remember watching a video of Submariner compared to a Tudor, and watched the video of a Tudor being compared to a Tag Heuer Aqua Racer, and seeing Aqua Racer with the plastic ring around it almost made me puke. And people were like, oh, the Aqua Racer is actually just as good as that Rolex Submariner. Don't go for the Submariner. Don't go for the Tudor. Why overpay for the Tudor if you get this one? So I remember thinking like, fuck, this is all garbage. Just get a Rolex. Like just get a Rolex Submariner. That's the best one. But then I opened up the website and I saw the Panda, right? I didn't know it was the Panda. I didn't know it was the first time I've seen this, right? But I remember thinking like, holy shit, that's way cooler than the fucking Submariner. I'll just get this. So I went we went to the city to buy this one, and they told me, hey, you can't actually buy this thing. I was like, what the fuck? Yeah,
So what?
like, so they said that this was actually the only watch that you had to have purchased something before, and if you bought any watch from them, they'll put you on the wait list for this. And they said
Okay.
about 2 years. And I said, all right. And she said, well, here's some other alternatives. And she put in front of me three watches: a black Submariner, a Hulk, and a Batman. And she said, these are all three just as good. And I was
And
like, oh, it's a fucking Submariner.
Submariner dates, right?
Submariner date, yeah. I was like, oh, that's a fucking Submariner. That's the one that Archie was talking about. So I took that one because I looked at, oh, the green one's like, what the hell am I gonna wear the green one with? It's fucking green, fucking ugly. And then the other one was GMT, the Batman. I was like, I'm not traveling anywhere. Fuck that. Who cares about that? Let's go with the sub. That's the one I've seen in all the videos. And then so she's like, so they put me on the wait list. But like 2 months later, I remember wearing the sub and thinking like, "Fuck, the sub is so cool. I don't even need the other watch." And then inadvertently, I found out that it was actually like selling over retail and stuff, like and like super over retail. I'm like, "Oh shit, I
Yeah, that's
better."
yeah.
Yeah. I'm started thinking, "Oh, I'm fucking lucky that I'm on this wait list. Really blessed
Yeah.
that it was the watch because if I went for the Submariner, I would have never got on the wait list for the Daytona. But
See,
because I went for the
when it comes to Hulk and me, I'm
mm,
more of a fundamentalist, right? I'm the no date two liner. I would be fine with the 5-digit 14060.
mm,
That's a great watch. But even the green bezel and even the date, it's like let's not bother. For me, the sub
Lord,
is simple. You put it on and you go out, right? My Submariner never gets the date wrong,
Lord, I remember
right?
hating the Hulk. I remember hating the Hulk. Like
I
thinking,
still
oh
hate it.
my god, it's putrid. It's so putrid. But then when it started becoming hyped up, I could feel myself being manipulated by the secondary market. My mind being brainwashed by it
Sure.
because it was fucking ugly. It was in front of me. I didn't want it. I was like, what? Who would buy this when you can get the
I mean,
Hulk?
look,
When you can get the black
I'm
one?
not I'm not immune to the whims of the market. Don't take me
Yeah.
wrong, but when it comes to certain watches, if I hate it, I hate it. And if I don't
Listen,
like it, let's not use the word hate. If I don't like it, I don't like it. Daytona can cross Rubicon this year, 100K, I'll still
Mm,
not want one. Hulk, it can triple, never come back into the Rolex lineup. I'll still not want it because
yeah,
I just don't like it. So it's but yeah, there are a lot of other things that I want this because it's not
yeah,
available. I'm not immune to it. But when it comes to watches, I feel like I have such a particular taste and I'm so
yeah,
picky. If it doesn't hit the right spot, I can't adjust it to fit that spot. It just doesn't happen.
yeah, yeah, man. It's like, oh my god. But
Yeah.
I can see how these things are vegetables. Okay, the Rolex offering, these are vegetables. These are healthy for you watches. They're not what what I want. Like they're not designed like because let's be honest, those green, the yellow and green, right? Most people who, if these were like in the boutique, right, most people would know that that's the John Mayer.
Right.
So Omega is purely trying to capture that those people who want the John Mayer but they can't get it, and they're trying to almost use this deceptive tactic of luring them in. It's like it's a honeypot trap. It's a honeypot. So yeah, man.
I mean, look, I can't deny that. By the way, who is Oshin's friend who does live streams with him?
With him, Dirk. He's
Dirk.
supposed to be a local.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
Dirk kept saying that we should call this Oshin because you're gonna buy it instead of John Mayer. But
Oshin said he wants the green one. He's gonna
yeah,
get the green.
well, I mean, I don't know if he's gonna get it, but he was salivating over a lot of
Yeah.
these models, but particularly that green and gold. And look, I mean, he's Irish. That's why he feels so strongly about having certain
Mm,
kinds of green colors and accents on his watches. So
mm,
I think that's why he has the Hulk as well. So it would fit him. Um,
mm.
I wouldn't
Look,
I wouldn't hold it against him. I think that's a beautiful watch. I like the fact that the bezel is also in a deep shade of green.
matching
But
green. Yeah.
it's hard to disregard the comparison. It's hard
It's
to
tainted.
count
It's
out the
tainted.
and I already don't like the John Mayer anyways. Not the person. I don't
Yeah, yeah,
like the watch. I don't
yeah,
like the gold green Daytona to begin with. So I don't know how to feel about this one.
yeah.
Um,
I think it's tainted fruit. It's the forbidden fruit that Omega should not have touched. It's like that Venus flytrap. It's just designed to steal your money, steal your hard-earned cash. Although I
yeah.
love Rolex watches, I think many people today are manipulated by the Rolex hype. But the Rolex is not really, they don't go out of their way to copy or be anything, like they're not like responsible for a lot of this hype. I mean, it's like, look, they're responsible to like they're good, right? They have really good, and they've been doing what they're doing for fucking 50 years, right? But I don't think they would think that they're, and also I don't know how much they want their watches to become this other thing, like 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 some people, like I don't know. I think they probably struggle with this as well because their watch is almost being redefined. Instead of being a watch or a collectible, they're becoming like this thing, like a store of value, like a Bitcoin. And I don't know if they really want their watches to be treated as a Bitcoin. Sure, they might want to move product, but they don't want to change the definition of what the watch is and what it represents.
Yeah, Joseph, I thank you for tuning in. This is a point that I addressed earlier, right? The
Hmm.
Omega is a business. and they are responsible to their shareholders. And I
Mm.
hope that this particular marketing move turns out to be the right one for them. And I hope they get good business out of it, because when it comes to the heritage of the brand, when it comes to the identity of the brand,
Yeah.
personally, again, as a collector whose voice is quite insignificant in all this mess, even among collectors,
Mm.
uh, I am just expressing my personal opinion, which is a little different than Tim's, right? You know, I'm not really bashing Omega to that same level. However, yeah, I do think it is a little bit of a misstep if this becomes definitive of the brand in years to
Dude,
come, because it
if I
will help move units, it will help them sell watches. But
but
again,
will it?
Omega was just like
But
if
Lord,
one sentence, Omega was the brand about again this sort of reverse snobbery. It defined itself by its difference, by providing a very distinguished and distinctive alternative to Rolex. If it has too much of Rolex within it, it will eat the brand from inside. Tim, please.
exactly. Like their attempt of just trying to make money is so apparent. It's a turnoff. Like when you don't look like you, I think like Rolex, they don't fucking look like they want to make money. That's why they go out of their way to fucking release shit that people don't want, or like, and yet that seems to make them more money. But Omega, when they come out and they're like design, like making all these watches that designed to kind of appeal to certain people, certain type of collectors, it just comes off as desperate. It's just desperate. It's almost like if this is our last breath, like almost like they're drowning, and ah, this is the last attempt. Like I don't know. I just it just seems like they're trying to make money, and it's too obvious, and people are just not gonna buy it. I think people are not gonna buy it. I think this is going to do long-term damage to the brand. Are they making collectible toys like Seiko, or are they making watches for enthusiasts?
Joseph B says, you're missing the point. They make for the masses, not collectors. What say you, my friend?
Doesn't look like they're making for the masses, because the pieces that they're releasing, they're literally equivalents of collectible Rolex watches, like the John Mayer. John Mayer is a very collectible and sought after model, and when they make a watch that make a color combination, like they could have made a purple Seamaster, okay, right? They could have done that, right? But they chose one that as closely resembles as a similar offering from Rolex that happens to be at this moment to be very highly desirable. They could have made that green Speedmaster 5 years ago. They could have made it 10 years ago. They haven't done so until now, when collectors are looking to get a John Mayer.
Jay has an interesting point. Tim, you're a
Mm.
highly involved buyer,
Hmm.
as are most of us in this space. Many buyers walk in, and Joseph D made this point too, and buy
Hmm.
whatever fits their price point. Like when you decide on a flight, do you choose the price? Do you choose the airplane?
You know, Lord, like to answer that, I've seen people buy stuff at the Omega, right? When I was there, there was people trying stuff on, and it's just because Omega has so many options, people end up choosing nothing, or they choose just like some bullshit. Like I saw a guy trying on a Seamaster chronograph. I'm like, what? What a joke! Seamaster chronograph. Come on, man. Nobody should be trying that on.
I mean, Jay presents a very good analogy, so I'm not going to nitpick, but
Hmm?
Of course, you actually choose the airline in many cases. If you can't trust the airline, if it has very bad, like
Hmm.
infamously bad service, or if it's unreliable, if it has too many delays, in the last few years, God forbid, if it has an accident in recent time, you're going to shy away from choosing that. So even when it comes to the seemingly most utilitarian purchases, uh, yeah, let's not disrespect the average customer, the intelligence of the average customer. Sometimes people do come with a certain thing in their mind. And I think people in the age of social media, people do watch at least a video or two. Most people who step into these boutiques. So yeah, I mean, I think these releases matter, right? Whether they matter in the way we think it matters, we
Yeah.
can be absolutely wrong. I can be absolutely wrong. Tim can be absolutely wrong. Tim can get certain things right. I might get certain things wrong. That's absolutely right. But I
Well,
think
Lord,
pieces
Lord,
matter. They're gonna mean something down the line, and that's why I think it's a worthy discussion. Go ahead.
how would you feel if, let's say, you first bought a watch, right, from a reputable brand, okay? Let's say an Omega. Let's say you start out as not a watch enthusiast, but you're just a punter going in to buy an excellent watch, right? And you choose to go, you have a lot of money, you just won the lotto or something, and you go for a full yellow gold speedy with the green dial, right? And then 5 years later you start getting into watches more, and then someone tells you, oh yeah, that watch you're wearing, that was just a Omega knockoff of this. And let's say you meet a guy at the airport, you were talking about airports. Oh, you're wearing, that's the Omega knockoff of my John Mayer Daytona that's right here. And you're like, oh yeah, really? Like, I spent 50,000 on this thing. It's like, yeah, it is what it is. And this Daytona is like half a mil by then or something. I don't know. But I mean, I think you would go back, you start researching, and you find out that, hey, this is basically, and now that wouldn't be a problem if you just bought, let's say, a moonshine. That's not pretending to be anything else. Okay, that's just its own thing. You wear your gold watch. He's wearing gold watch. No problem. Okay, there's no that awkward conversation that, dude, you're wearing just a homage watch, just a fucking knockoff. You fucking loser. That's it. It's gonna fucking sting, man. It sucks. That would never happen, Tim. And the guy who would say that is an asshole. It happens all the time, dude. There's people who wear Invicta who get approached and say, "Hey, nice Rolex, man," and they go, "Oh, it's just an Invicta."
Joseph, I
Happens.
mostly agree with whatever you said, but this one, I think you're missing the point a little bit. Most people who wear a Rolex are assholes. So trust me,
I'm sorry. I'm
they are,
sorry. Hold on. Hold
they're
on.
gonna,
Hold on. Let me
they're
put
gonna,
a. Hey,
right,
hold on.
they are going to.
Let me play devil's
Most
advocate. Hold
people,
on.
people wear a John Mayer because they're humble, because they don't want to flex. Of course, they're gonna say shit like that. That's
Yeah,
exactly what
yeah.
this clientele.
They're gonna fucking emasculate you. They're gonna, dude. And it's like spending $60,000 and then get told that you're wearing a watch that wants to be some other watch, dude. Like, okay, with Breitling, that Breitling perpetual chronograph, right? At least that's a cheap watch. That's like a $10,000 watch that's trying to be a $250,000 watch. With this Omega, it's an expensive watch that's trying to be a similarly expensive watch. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, man.
Yeah. Jay, I tried to address this in the beginning. I think we can talk about it maybe in another live stream at some length. Most
Mhm.
consumers can find a watch within the entire Swatch Group offerings. in Tim's circular logic, he totally avoids Swatch Group and walks across the street to Rolex.
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 Oh, so he's saying, this that the Omega John Mayer Omega is not actually trying to be a John Mayer Omega. It's actually trying to be a Tissot chronograph with the green dial. That's trying to be a John Mayer. Is that what he's trying to say?
Well, I mean, Swatch Group is pretty all-encompassing, right? They have Breguet, they have Omega, they have Swatch, they have Blancpain. They have just about everything. What do they not have? In fact, they don't have what Richemont doesn't have. They have what LVMH doesn't have.
Yeah.
Hi to the roommate, by the way.
Hi to the roommate.
She's getting ready to go to work.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, they do have to. Omega does have to know their place. Unlike Rolex. Okay. Unlike Rolex, Omega have to know their place. Because the Richemont heads up, they fucking come down, they tell them, listen, you bitches, this is what you're gonna make.
Swatch.
And the Swatch Group, I said. The Swatch Group. They come down there, they come to the offices, they fucking slap a couple of faces, okay, and then tell them exactly what they have to do. Otherwise, they get fired, right? Rolex doesn't have that kind of management that's like, hey, you guys, your profits are down. Profits are down.
At least, unlike, at least Swatch Group leaves them alone for a little bit, not like LVMH, which literally gives the brands to his sons.
Yeah.
You know, apparently the younger son now became marketing director, mainly for watches, even for Louis Vuitton. Another Arnaud became like a high-level executive in the LVMH.
Swatch comes down and says, hey, you have to suck those splinters dry.
Tag Heuer's CEO. So it's kind of crazy when it comes to these international conglomerates, and that's why I love JLC, but I will never have a commitment to them at the level that I have to the Crown. You know, because it is what it is. Because at the end of the day, they're just part of an international corporation.
They're not fucking beholden to greedy fikers in some other country, you know. And that's the problem with a lot of these Swatch Group brands. They get slapped down. They're told their freaking place where they have to be in. When they try to get out of their lane, they're being told, "Hey, we have another brand in the Swatch Group that takes that spot. You cannot compete against other brands in the Swatch family."
Speaking of people being put in their place, Joseph D put us squarely in the place of fantasy as delusional fantasists.
We're delusional fantasists. I admit, I am. I do so much live streams. My brain is totally melted. I just think about watches nonstop. So
Rolex actually hates their customers. If you ask me, they think they're better than their customers.
Oh yeah, exactly. Rolex knows that their customers are fucking morons. Okay, they're fucking. And don't get this twisted. Here's the thing. That's the thing. Rolex knows that they know better because they've proven. They have proven. They have 50 years, at least, if not more, 50 years of knowing better than their customers know, because dude, like if fucking customers were so clever, why isn't Omega the #1 brand in the world? If people are so smart, why aren't they #1? Because people are morons. I'm a moron. Okay? I don't want Rolex to make what I want. I want a fucking pink dial Submariner. Yes, pink dial with green bezel. I'm a fucking moron. They shouldn't listen to me. It will ruin the brand. Okay? You get that, Lord?
I do. You know, again. that's
But
why
these
I
bikers at Omega, they think their customers are some type of fucking geniuses. Why listen to experts if you can get morons who buy your product to tell you what they want? I mean, fuck me dead.
um that's why I wanted to do this live stream, because I care, because I care about Omega. And again,
Yeah,
I think it's probably a good business move in the short term.
short term
May end up being quite
disaster,
disastrous, hopefully
disaster.
not fatal in the long term, because James Bond may not have saved the world entirely, but it
Yeah,
saved Omega in the 90s. They might not be able to find another James Bond if they drive the company to the ground once again. Mr. Tudor, for
unbelievable.
you, I heard today that Tudor is releasing
Tutor.
a new ladies line. My guess is called Black Baby Lady. Good source.
Oh, sounds exciting.
I could make a joke about this, but I'm going to pass because I don't want to offend anyone. Joseph D. Same logic can be applied to Tudor selling Rolex Homage to
In
cash in.
fact, in fact, you know why Rolex is making sure that Tudor is making homages of their watches? Because they want to fucking cock block any fiker out there who want to make like a reasonably priced homage watches of their brand, just like what Omega is doing. This is the whole point. Rolex realized, wait a minute, if we don't cover that sector, a fucking a blood sucking brand, a fucking rodent brand like Omega might come in and start making homages of our watches. So the only reason Rolex made Tudor to make these watches because it's completely for cock blocking purposes. That's all. That's all. That's the only purpose. Because they don't want other fighters to cash in on their branding.
Let me pull this lever here and
This
end
is
this
like
podcast
this is
before
like
before it gets
Archie.
worse.
Yeah, it's like Archie making me do after shows so that other rodents can cash in on his audience. You know what I mean? It's just to cock block other people. That's what Tudor is for. It's just a they don't even care if Tudor makes any money. They don't even care if it's profitable or not. They just don't want other people making money off their branding. That's all.
They I mean, I think that's a great example. I keep saying this, that Tim Wright is an Archie homage, but he's a good Archie homage. He's the kind of Archie homage that we want. We want people to pay respect and pay tribute to AC3 and do it in the proper way. And Tim gets
Yeah,
it right.
yeah,
Tim gets it right. Excuse me the
yeah.
pun, but
There you go.
it is what it
There you
is.
go.
And Tudor,
Yeah,
I think, yes, they make. I mean, they are the official, certified, approved Rolex homage brand. I don't
yeah,
think anyone denies that.
yeah,
But even within that space they carved recently, and within the mark they finally made in North America, which was a market that they never quite succeeded in,
yeah.
now they're taking certain challenges. They're also
Mhm.
trying to do their own thing. Look, Mr. Tudor, for you, Mr. Tudor, to you, just announced that they're coming with a new ladies line, which I think is the wrong move, because more women actually want to wear the same designs and same sizes of watches that men wear. They want to wear more sports watches. That's why the Daytona was so popular among women as well, because it was that one watch within the professional line that had the right proportions for most women. Of course, as we are all benefiting from the hormones in the chicken, the women are growing in proportions as well. Don't take me wrong. We are body positive here, except I do target certain people. You know who you are. But yes, so I don't know if that's the right move. But again, Tudor has its space. Tudor has its place. They know that they're the little brother. but they're also trying to
And
do
Rolex
something.
tells them what to do.
Yeah, but they do.
Rolex says, "Hey, you have to cock block Omega before those fighters get any funny ideas." Okay, and Tudor says, "Yes, sir." And then Rolex says, "We'll pay you $25 for an hour." And they said, "You got it, boss."
Joseph D says circular logic at its best. Great discussion, by the way. If it weren't for your interventions, Joseph, it wouldn't be a great discussion. It wouldn't be what it is. So thanks for pushing us from the chat.
Yeah.
It really does help. It really does.
Yeah, it's good stuff. It's so good. Oh my god! I gotta tell you, man. I gotta tell you. The more I think about this whole Omega debacle, the more pissed off I get. I'm gonna make a Tim Wright explodes video. Tim Wright explodes video coming soon.
Exactly, like which is like Tim Wright's Black Bay.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
homage line. Archie explodes, and then there's Tim Wright explodes.
I'm gonna make
For those of you who
explodes
can't
video.
quite take that level of intensity,
Tim
you
Wright
can
explodes.
the light
Yes.
version.
I
From
like it. I like it, man. I like it. You
Tim.
know, you just
Are you starting your stream at 2?
yeah, yep. I have to go 10 minutes. I got 10 minutes to go. So I better go fire up my thing, start preparing for the show.
Of course, we can do that, and I will maybe not immediately, but I will most certainly join you.
Sure.
In your stream too. As always, I really appreciate it, Tim. By now, I consider you a co-host of this channel, which doesn't imply any
obligation. That's a lot of fun
on your part.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I do really appreciate that you keep coming back, and we always have a great discussion. I think we are a good tag team.
Hey.
But it's like WWE. You know, who knows what happens next day? We can turn against each other and start barking at each other again. But so far, so good. I really do like it. I love collaborating with you on this channel. And thank you for your time. Thank you for your conversation. Thank you for the company.
Lord, how many times do I have to tell people that I'm lazy? See, I was gonna film a video, but then I saw you have this beautiful, beautiful intro to the live. I was like, "Fuck! I have to come on and contribute to this." It's just too tempting, man. I can't stop myself.
Well, I will continue to tempt you, but I also want you to do your own video once again. You can
I'll do it tomorrow.
You can blame me. You can
blame it all on Lord.
Feed me to your audience. Say it's Lord who dragged me into an argument on his channel, and I couldn't do my video for you. Blame him. Attack him. Super chat to kick him out of my panel. Whatever. I'm happy to oblige.
Nice.
Guys, if you have liked any of this content, like, subscribe, and tell everyone else. I'm trying to grow the channel. There are all sorts of ways you can help me. It's all very obvious. It's down there. It's in the description.
Send a PayPal donation to Lord. I think I would personally appreciate it if you would. Because Lord has been working his ass off, and that's why I keep showing up to give him encouragement and keep him pumping.
Thank you. But for now, your support, your presence here on the panel, in the chat, as part of the conversation is great. Even if you can't donate or can't provide something for now, don't want to provide anything for now, just send me an email. If you have any ideas about subjects that I need to cover, if I can help you with an upcoming watch purchase, especially if it's a vintage watch, send me an email. If you want me to delve into a brand's history, look into a particular model, send me a line. And if you want me to do a collection review for you, which is an idea apparently that I stole from Tim.
Stole my shtick, man.
Please send me an email. I do all of this for free until the end of this month, until the end of March. And I would be happy to do it for you. It helps me generate great content with all of these wonderful characters from the Archieverse, and it helps me, first of all, to grow the channel, which is why I appreciate that you are there in the first place. I really appreciate everything. Tim, thank you so much. This has been a great conversation, and I will see you on Tim Wright's live stream quite soon.
Great show, Lord.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Upvote, guys.